Mark, before we tell our viewers a little bit about ourselves and our background to hopefully justify the sort of people that we are and the skill sets that we have, I think that first of all we should answer probably the most pressing questions that people would have, which is, who are the peacekeepers? Why the peacekeepers? What's the future of the peacekeepers? And what would be my role if I join? Now, I know you don't like me asking you too many questions in one go, so I'll ask them you one by one. What actually is the peacekeepers, Mark? Who are they?
The peacekeepers is a concept which is based upon everybody's natural right to uphold the peace and their obligation to uphold the peace. That's why we're in society. So everybody is a peacekeeper. You, me, everybody.
Absolutely. And why do we particularly need peacekeepers right at this moment in time?
Largely, what sort of sparked this is the protests that when somebody dissents an opinion, how can you express the protest? And so it's trying to make a dispute resolution that is peaceful, as opposed to having to protest. And we're all aware when there is protest, things can get violent or unlawful at any rate. And so by understanding all your rights, that we're all equal under the law, we all can uphold the peace because we understand our obligations to uphold the peace, and we can hold other people to.
You and I, the original concept of the peacekeepers, we formed it back in October 2020. The logic was that a small group of people like ourselves who understood the rule of law, that we were happy to attend. Let's not call them protests, let's call them rallies, because at the end of the day is that that's a story in itself, isn't it? What is the difference between a peaceful gathering, a rally and a protest? But we decided that we would go and challenge any police or local enforcement officers that, in our opinion, were acting unlawfully. And we've had quite some success at doing that. But I think that the long-term approach for the peacekeepers, as you rightfully say, we are all peacekeepers. The minute you are born, none of us want to be breaching the peace, and we want to live in a peaceful society. But we know that due to the recent alleged pandemic, that the law enforcement officers, whether they are police officers or hired thugs, for want of better words, we've seen plenty of those out there as well, is that we want people who can stand by and know their rights.
Yeah, and also it just builds confidence to people so that, to stand on their rights and their beliefs. So even just by being aware of the process and some basic laws of your rights, you don't need to feel uncomfortable if somebody asks you to wear a mask in the supermarket, for instance. You can respond in a very peaceful manner and interact very honorably with them, and to stand by your beliefs.
We want our peacekeepers to act like the original constables, which is you should be able to feel comfortable as an individual, knowing that should you need any help or assistance, that you should be able to call upon other members of the public. I think that's an incredibly important point to make, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's why, if the members of the public, if everybody understands their fundamental rights, essentially there is absolutely no reason for a police force.
Yeah, I mean, sort of, we're looking quite, I suppose if we had this conversation 10 years ago, it would sound quite futuristic to even suggest that we don't need a police force. But we don't, and we never have, because when people start living their life as a person, as you say, that fully understands their rights and how none of us should be breaching the peace. And if anyone does breach the peace, then it should be the local community that stand up to the person or persons that's actually committing an act which is breaching their peace. Mark, we're going to be obviously covering a little bit more about all the work that you've been doing so far to date as part of the training program, the extensive training program. We've been talking quite a lot, you and I, over the course of the last 6 months about equity and about the rule of law. And what we don't want to do is get too detailed at this stage. There's a great many videos, recordings, and work that's been done so far that people can study. But let's talk about the current training program then. After this introduction, you and I will produce 2, 3, 4 short videos just to allow people to understand their basic rights and how they can apply them. So if you just want to do a 2-minute sort of overview of that, and then we'll call this this introduction meeting to a close today, and we'll then share the training modules with people.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, in essence, what we're looking to do is to make sort of 3 levels, design it around 3 levels. The first level is just a general know your rights level, which basically is applicable to absolutely everybody. And that there covers where your rights come from, law, where does lawful governance come from. The second level, then we go into more detail, because we don't want to put people or don't want people to go out and put themselves and risk themselves into trouble. So in the second level, we're looking at actually how to protect yourself. So what, how can you act to minimize the risk of, for instance, being searched, being arrested, being detained. And the main thing to remember is that just because you're familiar with the law does not mean that you will not be arrested, even if you're acting totally lawfully. However, it also then goes on in the third module, basically, which is creating the record, so that should you be arrested unlawfully and detained unlawfully, that you can actually prepare a record which can get taken to court, which will be a separate part, to hold these people to account. And the idea is, in essence, once you've reached the third level, that you'll run a team, for lack of a better word, but basically somebody that's at the base level, at the first level, know your rights. And the idea of that is that they learn to openly approach the police without fear, start to create the record of people that are present, i.e. the police or any other people. And then once you're familiar with that and happy with that and continue on to the second level, then you'll start to interact with the police, literally under the mentorship, guidance, whatever you want to call it, of somebody that's at the higher level on the field. So that's the sort of structure of how we operate. And the reason for 3 is so that there's always 2 witnesses to the event. So that's sort of, in short, what the program's about.
And I think not to worry anyone that's not particularly assertive person, just to let people know, you and I have been quite active for the last year, haven't we? If we could have approached someone, they'd been approached, and we don't seem to have ever been arrested by the police. I think that our confidence in what we've had to say, which we'll be passing on and teaching to others, I don't really think that the police wanted to risk reprimanding any peacekeeping individual. Yep, look forward to seeing you on the first training module.
Okay, great.